I just wanted to talk about this article. It's an article from AP, and it's about Beto O'Rourke essentially trying to do a reintroduction. He's basically doing a redux, a 2.0 version of himself. Beto O'Rourke, who I refer to as Beto Obama. He had a big kind of showing when he first came out and announced his presidency. Everybody lost their shit and cummed in their pants over him and shit. So now apparently poor Beto is not having a very good time. So I would just wanted to detail go into the details about it with you guys a little bit here and see what you guys think, and we'll discuss it. So the title of the article is Beto O'Rourke plans, quote, reintroduction as 2020 buzz fizzles. It says Beto O'Rourke barreled into the 2020 presidential race with breakneck energy and a fly-by-the-seat-of-his-pants campaign style that saw him leap atop tables to address overflow crowds with the organic, off-the-cuff candor that had made him a Texas sensation. Obviously, as you can tell from the tone of this article, they're already fawning over him. The next paragraph says, but since his mid-March campaign launch, the buzz surrounding the former congressman has evaporated. Competing in a massive field of Democratic White House hopefuls, O'Rourke has sagged in the polls. He's made few promises that resonated or produced headline-grabbing moments, instead driving around the country, meeting with voters at mostly small events. I wouldn't be surprised if his events are small. Especially since everything he says is fucking typical cliches and platitudes. It says, in a tacit recognition that this approach isn't working, O'Rourke is planning to try again, taking a hands-on role in staging a reintroduction ahead of next month's premier Democratic presidential debate. As he finalizes his plans, O'Rourke has entered an intentional quiet period, quote unquote, to build out campaign infrastructure, according to an advisor who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss the campaign's strategy. That will end soon. So apparently that strategy is going to end soon. O'Rourke plans to step up his national media appearances after skipping most of that kind of exposure in recent months. He is scheduled to appear on MSNBC's Rachel Maddow show on Monday night and NBC's The View the next day. By the way, just to point out, this is an article from the 11th of May, so he already made those appearances. So I might show it to you guys, or I might just put it in the voice, in the description box for you guys to check out. He's also set to offer more concrete policy plans on top issues. So far, he's issued just one on climate change. O'Rourke acknowledges he's struggled to find his presidential campaign footing. Quoting him, he says, I think in part, I was just trying to keep up when I first started out, he said after addressing about 40 people at a recent house party in Newton, Ohio. I really feel like I found my rhythm and my pace, and I just feel comfortable, and I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. His top aides denied that a full reinvention or Beto 2.0 is in the works. They note that O'Rourke plans to keep packing days with as many as half a dozen campaign events. He'll still venture into off-the-beaten path locales that include rural, heavy Republican areas. Those were the trademarks of the Senate campaign last fall when he nearly toppled Republican Senator Ted Cruz by visiting all of deep red Texas's 254 counties. But his team also acknowledges that for all its excitement, O'Rourke's initial campaign launch exposed some disorganization, assembling a campaign staff while the 2020 roadshow was already rollicking along simply wasn't sustainable. It took O'Rourke nearly 2 weeks after announcing his campaign to formally hire Jen O'Malley Dillon to run his team. She was the deputy campaign manager of Barack Obama's 2012 re-election bid and is only now moving on to O'Rourke's headquarters in El Paso, Texas, after doing the job from Washington. Wow. He didn't even have somebody on site in his own headquarters. Interesting. That's probably why you're not doing too well, buddy. It says O'Rourke added 16 staffers recently in Iowa, which holds the first presidential caucus, but that's fewer than some other candidates have. In New Hampshire, which votes next, O'Rourke has yet to formally announce a state director or campaign staff, though he has informal organizers there. Man, this guy's extremely unprepared. He does not know what he's doing. I mean, even the people who are advising him can't tell him this shit. It was ready, fire, aim sort of trajectory, said Chris Lippincott, a Texas consultant who ran an outside political group opposing Ted Cruz in 2018. Kathy Sullivan, a Democratic National Committee member from New Hampshire, noted that after events, if you don't have somebody with a clipboard taking names and addresses and phone numbers, you can lose contact with folks. Doesn't he know this already, though? I mean... Apparently him and his people obviously don't know about that. Sullivan recently had lunch with O'Rourke in New Hampshire's capital, Concord, as part of a small women's group and found him to be very sincere, very thoughtful. But she also said that his falling out of the 2020 spotlight helped boost another young unorthodox candidate, Pete Buttigieg, mayor of South Bend, Indiana. So yeah, Buttigieg, I think I covered an article on my first episode about how Buttigieg was gaining a lot of his popularity. So he was stealing the popularity that O'Rourke had, and he was getting it for Buttigieg was getting it for himself. Maybe I didn't discuss. I don't know. I don't remember, but I remember either way, I do remember hearing about that. It says the work to bolster the campaign has begun to stabilize things. Earlier this week, O'Rourke announced hiring Jeff Berman, a top delegate guru who helped Obama navigate the complicated process of locking up enough support to secure the Democratic presidential nomination. Isn't it funny how he's trying so hard to be like Obama? I mean, I don't know. I don't find it funny because I think it's obvious that O'Rourke clearly wants to be. I'm sorry. I think it's pretty obvious that O'Rourke clearly wants to be just like President Obama, or at least before he was president, for sure, because he's getting all the people that used to work for his campaign. Not so much working with him in the White House, though. But obviously, those people are separate. Obviously, those kind of people. But let's see here. It says. It said, quote, it says O'Rourke, it has been building up over time. O'Rourke said of his campaign's apparatus, I think we're getting better organized all the time. It says that he maintains that it's still early. During his first trip to Iowa in March, O'Rourke focused on eastern counties that had supported Obama but went for Donald Trump in 2016. More recently, he sought out the relatively few Democrats in the state's rural Southwest, trying to do the spade work. As the country folk he's trying to woo might say, to slowly grow lasting support. Quoting O'Rourke again here, it says, with 21, maybe more candidates on the horizon, this is going to be decided by a matter of a few hundred votes, maybe a few dozen votes, O'Rourke said after speaking at a former livestock auction space in Shenandoah, Iowa, that's been converted into a spiffy hall for weddings and parties. So every one of these conversations matters. It says one holdover from O'Rourke's do-it-yourself style in Texas, is his insistence on driving himself between events, repeatedly coming behind the wheel of rented Dodge Grand Caravans. Some campaign staffers see it as time that could be spent doing more productive, or at least less potentially dangerous things, but O'Rourke's unfazed. So he's trying to be like a regular guy, like, oh, I'm driving around in my truck, I'm driving in my Dodge Grand Caravan. Okay. I mean, instead of pushing the ideas that would help people, he wants to drive in trucks just like regular people do. Yeah, so the rest of the article just points out how he's trying to, push positive energy and he's going all over New Hampshire, 10 New Hampshire counties in 48 hours. Apparently he's driving to all these places. He takes questions from attendees at every stop and is quick enough on his feet to usually provide detailed answers before pivoting to his talking points. Okay. one person he spoke to apparently quoted said, Marsha Fulton, a 78-year-old retired teacher and school administrator who saw O'Rourke at a restored train depot in Creston, Ohio, said she's not decided on who she'll vote for yet, but he was really impressive, more so than I expected. He was prepared, and that was a real question given his youth. Okay. It says here on this last part, it says, he's going to slow down a bit, said Sandy Sothman, the co-vice chairman of the Cass County Democrats who watched O'Rourke speak at a sunny hillside park in Atlantic, Iowa. When he gets going and talks about so many things at once, it becomes a little like, is he riffing or what? Yeah. So that's the end of the article. Listen, at the end of the day, Beto O'Rourke does not have, and same with Pete Buttigieg, by the way. Same with a lot of these candidates, honestly. But if you were to put two guys at the forefront of most uninteresting, but like being enamored because of their looks and their age, those two guys are Beto O'Rourke and Pete Buttigieg. And the lack of substance from these two guys is just, it's like groundbreaking how bad they are at like making their arguments and just being completely uninteresting and being totally like appealing to nobody except a bunch of people that think like because they're young and they're like good looking, and they're not good looking, but they're young and good looking, and whatever, Buttigieg is gay, and then O'Rourke, O'Rourke can speak Spanish or something. I think Pete Buttigieg speaks Norwegian or something. Like, for some reason, like, again, it goes back to the kind of whole thing that I was talking about before in one of my other segments about how, you know, Joe Biden picking Kamala Harris or Stacey Abrams or somebody as you know, a black woman as his vice presidential, his presidential pick. It's the same thing as this. People focus on these shallow little, traits from a person or something that they do or the way they act, and they think that's something that's gonna like be a great attribute as a president. But notice there's nothing about policy. They don't even know any of his policies. So when this person says that, he was prepared, and that was a real question given his youth. Prepared for what? What was he saying? He wasn't saying anything. I guarantee you he wasn't saying anything. He was swinging his arms, and he's really one thing that O'Rourke is really well known for is he's swinging his arms. He's going like this a lot. He's like you think he's like a, he's got some sort of like, I don't know. There's something wrong with his arms. I don't know what it is. It's just but in reality, what he's trying to do is he's trying to make himself like seem like this energetic guy that's like, like everybody wants to listen to, and like every one of his words has to like come with like a hand motion. It's like kind of like Trump. Yeah. Now that I think about it, it's very much like Trump. Like Trump likes to like this, and yeah, I'm the best. You know what I'm talking about? I'm the greatest. I'm a great businessman. You know what I'm saying? Like it's all these different movements. So in O'Rourke's case, it's just the only difference is that he likes to stand on top of tables and shit for some reason, and he likes to like go into like coffee shops and talk. So the guy is just completely, he's totally inorganic a word. He's the opposite of organic. Let's just put it that way. He's not an organic speaker. He doesn't think of anything off the top of his head. Everything is rehearsed. Everything is planned out to make sure it's, talking points. I mean, he doesn't have any original ideas. When his only policy, positions that he's, or policy proposal or policy ideas that he's come up with is climate change, one issue. And who knows I don't even know what his position is on climate change. I'm sure it's like just the typical Democratic point of view. But if that's the only thing that you can come up with, I mean, that's pretty pathetic. You can't come up with anything better than climate change to talk on. You can't talk about healthcare. You can't talk about, the income inequality. You can't talk about, I don't know. You can't talk about abortion. You can't talk about these issues that are, central in the Democratic platform. I mean, abortion, reproductive rights. These are easily talk about these things, especially when it comes to doing a campaign. So if you're, I don't know, making an appearance on some talk show or something, you can easily bring that up. But I don't know. It seems like he doesn't do. I don't know if he did that with his appearance. Was it on The View? I think it was on The View and Rachel Maddow's show. I'm gonna have to watch those segments possibly, or I'll just show it to you guys. You guys can check it out. I don't know if he talked about those issues on those shows, but if he did, I mean, he probably didn't get into that much detail because you don't really have that much time to talk about it. But if he did, he went over like the usual talking points that most of these candidates do. So he probably didn't get into detail. I would be very surprised. So at the end of the day, I think, and Kyle from Secular Talk made the same point. I think Beto O'Rourke is going to be one of those. He's going to be like another version. He's going to be the Democrats' version of Jeb Bush. And Jeb Bush was the guy that everybody was like fawning all over. Oh my God, Jeb Bush! He's going to face Hillary in the 2016. It's going to be him and Hillary, Jeb Bush and Hillary in the 2016 general election. Eventually, Jeb Bush, because he was so boring and so pathetic, he just flamed out. And that seems like what is happening with Beto O'Rourke. And the fact that he tries so hard to be like Barack Obama and tries to hire all of his staffers and all of his people and stuff. Apparently, a while back, he hired a bunch of people that used to work for Bernie's, I think, 2016 campaign, and then they left. So like that was like a big deal. People were like, I remember a lot of Democratic loyalists were like, "Oh my God, he got some people from Bernie. He's gaining that momentum." And then eventually they just like they got sick of him and they left, and they don't even like Beto O'Rourke anymore. So. Again, the guy is totally uninteresting. Nobody wants to get, hyped for this guy other than, acknowledging the fact that he faced Ted Cruz in Texas, almost beat him in Texas, almost became the senator there. And because of that, they fawn all over him because he almost beat a right-wing guy and he couldn't even beat that guy. So he almost beat a right-wing guy in Texas, and then everybody wants to pretend like he can, resonate all over the country, when in reality he can't. And I don't think that Pete Buttigieg is going to resonate all over the country either. So I think they're both, they're two sides of the same coin, and I think they're both going to falter and they're both going to flame out, just like a lot of the so-called hopefuls of the Republican Party did in 2016 as well.